Okay, first I'll say I have a bit of imposter syndrome trying to talk about beetles and Trevor when my interest in beetles is about this much and Trevor's interest in beetles is everything. I'll do my best, but I think it's worth saying that I don't think there's anybody, I'd love to be up, coming with a different say-so, who has contributed so much to, as we're going to hear soon, birds of Hertfordshire, the flora, which in itself is a massive undertaking, and then the beetles. And the point about the beetles is that there's barely been a county beetle book to follow on from. It certainly hasn't been answered. The people have written a bit about it here and there, sometimes over 100 years ago. But to have a book, the way Trevor produced that book, is quite unique. There's been county lists, there's often been little subgroups written about, but never such a comprehensive coverage. And I've borrowed these photographs, we've seen some before, but I think that's the most significant one, is only a coleopterist, or possibly a dipterist, would decide to pause by some skeleton bones and flesh, and probably find something of interest. The sweetener, yes, that goes along with botanising, I'm sure you can see that, but there's no plants involved in the carcass. Why get interested in beetles? If you're interested in natural history, they're just one more diverse group of fascinating insects, whether you're looking at bees or plant bugs or dragonflies or getting into other invertebrates like spiders, or you're looking at the flowering plants or the trees or mosses. They're fascinating and they're diverse. And if you see pictures like this, you think, oh, they're all wonderfully colourful, must be so easy to look at. Some of these are these bright red ones, or they're shiny, they've got metallic colours, like this older leaf beetle that was thought to be extinct, and now we've just found every older tree in the county, certainly in some wetlands. They tell you a bit about the environment, they tell you a bit about change, but actually most of them look like this. They are not colourful, usually small, dark, brown or black. They may have some markings on it, but when you realise there's something like 50 species that look identical to that in that one genus called Stennis. And these three bottom ones are all in the same genus of ground beetles, called Pterostopus. And you realise this is a microscope task and possibly dissection task. So it requires a tremendous degree of follow-up to any field work. You fill your net, you fill your tubes, you go home, and you've got 10 times more work to do to nail into these. So this is reflecting the diligence of Trevor's field work. But this is the wonderful production by Trevor. The Beetles of Hertfordshire, it's, as it says in the overview, the first book to comprehensively cover a county. It's a landmark study, it has photographs, it has information in great detail. It really sets the bar for any county book on an invertebrate group like the beetles. If you haven't had the book, the first 7 chapters before it gets to the meaty bit, which is the species by species account, it's absolutely fantastic to give you that understanding of. There's a chapter on the history recording of some of the great figures standing on the shoulders of the giants, the people who did some of that fundamental work back in the Victorian era of natural history, was becoming something you were allowed to do and talked about, wrote about. Dozens and dozens of competing entomological journals. Trevor looked at them all to extract the records of the county. There's a lovely section on beetle habitats, which of course includes things which are not usually in other habitats books on plants, because it includes things like dung piles and carcasses and those sort of other habitats of interest. Bees on the move, so the winners and losers, which is a fun topic for people interested in natural history. Whatever it is, there are winners and losers. There are species expanding their ranges as we lose others to climate change or changing habitats or pollution or so on. Nice section on beetles and nature conservation, key sites, to remind us of those, and the collections and sources, which Trevor had to admit, you can't go to every museum in the country to track down every collection. I remember going to the Cambridge University Zoology Museum's entomology room and finding specimens from Hertfordshire in there, quite a individual, and then Trevor went up to comprehensively look through those. I wasn't entirely sure where they'd gone. They were in Cambridge. Just a little bit of what the book looks like. The top map is the soil map, the bottom is the topography. Yes, we're not got a massive topographical change in Hertfordshire, but we have got 4 or 5 different river catchments. And then detailed, but very well written text accompanying it. Now, something I'd like to mention that others don't, that Trevor wrote very well indeed. So, over the years of working and being an enthusiast in natural history, you realise there are some people who just can communicate well, whether it's verbally or by writing. Trevor was one of those, absolutely. He writes beautifully and informatively. He covers the ground very well without getting overly complicated. So you read it, you think, I understand that, but I'm not a geologist. I understand that, but I'm not a botanist. So it is really well written. And after you've got those sections, those early chapters, which are a mine of information about the county and habitats, you get these species by species accounts. So I've just picked one literally at random. This is the horse-tailed weevil, this little fellow, about 3 millimetres in size. It lives exclusively on executed horsetails, preferably in wet, marshy habitats. And the account then says, look, it was found here, here, and here, here. So you've got C.G. Poole found it in Cheshunt, and F.B. Jennings found it around the Cheshunt area as well, maybe 10 years earlier. First recorded pre-1839, so all those early fields have been found. And then there's a massive gap. And I know natural history goes through its ebbs and flows, but there's a huge gap from 1910, maybe 1940 possibly, until Colin Plant finds one, gives it to Trevor, identifies it from Rye-Meads Nature Reserve in 2001. And subsequently, it's been found, before this book was published, in west of the county, in Croxton Common, that area. It actually isn't quite as uncommon once you bother to sweep through beds of horsetail. Of course, about the only beetle you're going to find there, and don't bother, because that's a horsetail, you don't get anything there. But if you have a good bed on a website, you should find this one. Okay. A decent photograph on the right. And the book was launched on another warm day a few years ago, 2018. It was a lovely event in the RAS in St Albans. And the middle photograph to me is the most important one because it has Brian and Trevor, the two sort of real enthusiasts and knowledgeable people about the beetles in the county. And Trevor inherited the job, or took over the job, really took over. He's been the county recorder for an amazing 37 years, and you sort of realise then that continuity is so valuable because everybody goes, oh, Trevor. Trevor knows, Trevor will not have information, Trevor would like to know, I can send something to Trevor. I got an email randomly this week saying, would you like this beetle record because you're the only person that I can see on my heart, mentions the word beetles. But I'm still down for water beetles. Who might get a carrying beetle record. For people who don't engage with the sort of iRecord network, we've lost that where to send things to. Samples, information. He provided terrific amount of support for people involved to go back plants for lineages and beetles. I know it's been mentioned before, but the award, the outstanding contribution to biological recording, the NBN Trust, so richly deserved. He could have been awarded just for his work with the NBN, or just for his work with beetles, or just for his work with plants, or maybe just for his 50, 60, 70 years work with British Naturalist Association, because it's all those. What I really like about the bottom of it is, he said, part of it is also the camaraderie of working alongside others with similar interests. And I'll come back to that networking. When I left the university and joined the National Trust, I quickly found whenever you met somebody, you could find a place or a person in common very quickly in the nature conservation world. They volunteered at Wickham Fair. They knew somebody you knew, but very often it was Trevor James. There was a few people whose names came up again and again. Oh yes, I know Trevor. And he was the connection. This was Trevor's first significant article about beetles. It was an attempt to pull together the records that he had inherited in his own back in 1987. The beetles in Hertfordshire, their sites and the conservation in citizens. So this was a really good attempt to try and pull together information to show that certain places were more of the unusual and rare beetles encountered. So it was a very useful review, but it was a lot of it based on quite old information. But then you come to Trevor's book, and he's done it again in space, and so much more information behind it. So this is just a map taken out of the book. The darker green is a higher quality site for beetles, so you can see the wonderful Pantanger Park there. You can see the really important woodlands in the south and east Herts. You can see the Ashridge estate and its commons in the Western County, Castleton Park, Woodendale Woods down in Watford Way, Warrington, and further in the north, and a big gap in north and east Herts. But Target has a little tiny bit that survives. And if you overlay that with actually the number of houses and people, you actually think beetle habitats in Hertfordshire survive better than you might have expected, considering the population pressure we have. But Trevor didn't stop there. He didn't stop with his wonderful book. He published two really significant updates afterwards in the transactions. When you publish a book, it usually does two things. The first thing, it makes people who forgot to pass on their records put their hand in their pocket or on their computer and hand it across. So Trevor received a lot of new data from a couple of people who had sat on it without realising that they really should have passed it on. Secondly, it engenders a lot of other interest. And people go, I know, I think I've seen that. They go and find things. And in his book, might be a little rare, a lot common, and they go, I think I've seen that one, go out and try and find it, because the book gives you enough information to say, go and look on this plant or this kind of habitat. And with it also, you get all the time new things appear. So this particular beetle over there on these figures is a coastal species, very capable of flying, turns up in moth traps. And it became news to the county in a particular hot spell, and anybody running up moth trap in high summer and warm temperatures, this may well turn up. So it's still notionally red data book, but it's probably not as rare as all that. Although, probably because it's mobile, you can look to find its habitat to see really whether something really is uncommon. If they're mobile all the time, you get this, if you think by looking at the map, oh, it's been having all these places, but actually it's just passing through. Anyway, these updates are really important. They also, wasn't Trevor told, that a chap called Andy Foster was working for the National Trust at Ashridge, was doing a 2-year study of the Ashridge estate, tall grass and old trees, he was using traps and he was using all sorts of methods. and he has lifted Ashbridge from being a sort of class 3 site to being a grade 1 site for a number of beetle groups, especially those associated with old trees. By the way, really, really so a lot of these letters he alone produced about 20 new species in the county in that survey. I thought this was quite interesting. I spent a few moments on iRecord, which is a record system where you can put a record on something and you can keep it your personal use, but it can be passed on to others. You can have photographs, you can get feedback sometimes if there's a local or national recorder. The dot back on the top shows the coverage of beetles. That's any text guide with at least a record has a red dot. So you can see a handful of dots at the southwest of Bishop's Stortford for some reason. But very good coverage, although if you looked at it in time, it wouldn't be quite so good with the gaps because nobody hasn't been somewhere for 7 decades. The right-hand one is of iRecord, so anybody who's put data on that system from January 2018 through to July 2023. And it sort of shows the county okay, so you can imagine there's dots going on. But when you look at it more carefully, there are 6,500 records of 803 species. They're not all verified, so some of you might make mistakes. But okay, they're quite good. Then you realise that ladybirds make up about a third of all of those records. And most of those are made up of 7-spotted harlequin ladybirds. They alone make up 17% of all those records. So if you took out ladybirds, and especially the most sort of frequently recorded ones like the 7-spot, then the coverage isn't so good. Rather nice coverage of long-haul beetles, only 8%. And by the time it gets to the grove beetles, that's the Staphylides or the little, they are the most diverse group, and they're 2% of the records. And probably most of those are demonstrated on this big one. So the coverage is more uneven than it first appears. But the good thing is that the book has helped generate an interest in the county's beetles. This is the reason I feel like it's impossible, because recording beetles is difficult. There are a few easy to recognise species. There are a few with a little bit of help with a hand lens and a living key you can do in the field. The vast majority require more effort in the microscope. I thought this little story of this species, which Trevor discovered at News Britain, was a good example. So, the article was published in Coleopterist. That's the beetle. It's a jewel beetle, which we have about a dozen species, maybe it's always changed, but in the tropics, these can be really chunky and very colourful, beautiful things. So we have a handful that look all very similar to that. Trevor was sitting on a pile of logs in Cowdeas Wood. A reasonably cut stack of oak logs by a main line attracted attention if only to sit on. So he was sitting there having sandwiches. He saw a lot of activity around the log pile, particularly of the Grylis species, these jewel beetles. Mostly appear to be a species called Commemorate, which now changed his name. But several looks appear to be smaller. So he firstly tried to catch one, which in this term we try to catch these things that can be quite flighty. Got one, got the key out, tried to key it through, and provisionally put it as a different species. Then the networking comes in. So he took it to the exhibition of the British Hertfordshire Natural History Society and showed it to other people. And somebody who knew could be different questions it, says that looks interesting, suggests it might be a blue example of Grylis viridis, one we get. But eventually, after much effort and more literature from other countries, came up with a more likely identification. And then you go to the museum, that was in London, to talk to one of the expert Peter Hammond. to get the natural museum finding everyone. So to add that one species to the county required field work, but also the thing I always find difficult, the eye. The eyes will realise that what you're looking at isn't quite the same as the other things you're looking at. So you need to have a certain sort of awareness to do that. Then you take it to other people and say, am I right? Willing to be told no, but you've got to be brave enough to go up to other people and ask them. And then you go to the museum and eventually you come up with a new species. And then to finish off, you tell it to other people and you write about it in the journal so that everybody can know. And that is, to me, a nice little example in a nutshell of just how diligent and careful you've got to be when you're potentially looking at a new species, whether it's a tufted sedge cropping or a killed beetle. I thought I'd just run through a few other interesting groups of beetles. I had asked Chris if there's any particular, and I'd asked this to Trevor as well when he gave his talk in one village, if he had a particular special interest group. He said, why had good naturalist? No, just interested in everything. Possibly was interested in these longhorns. And I wanted to put this up for two reasons. First is, there are some big and spectacular longhorn beetles that we can all see in the countryside. There are lots of people if you go to a nice wetland and willows. The bottom one, Agapanthea, which has a terrible pun name. Could be found on a hogweed plant anywhere in the county. But this little one shows the value of these little dot maps that Trevor produced. So not every species, but you can clearly see here a cluster of records in southeast parts of this species. Seems to be associated with a better woodlands with mixed conifers as well as deciduous woodlands in the county. Pretty different one that all of us can look out for. I'll get too near that computer. In the evenings, in high summer, this is our lovely glowworm. This is the female doing its thing. Those are dots over the last 5 years on ivory cord. So that's where people have said they've seen it. That should be great. So people say that these would decline, but you can see a lovely cluster of records on the Chilterns. The species feeds on snails, so it's not surprising like nearest habitats, but also scattered elsewhere across the county. The one thing I was going to show also, there's only one place there where there's been more than 2 records. So some people have recorded it, and they'll come back to see if there's a piece of collar or not. They turn up every year and how many they're seeing. So a lot of these is just a single observation. But, that's of interest. This group, ground beetles, another sort of, there's some very good keys and very good online resources to ground beetles. This is just ones that you tend to find associated with wetland habitats, so a nice bit of wet ground anywhere, pond, river edge, swampy bit. The big one up there, over the stone markers, might have the violet ground beetle you might see in your gardens. That's a sort of slightly rare relative likes wet peaty ground in particular. The 3 bottom ones, so you're not only the same genus, but you can see they have a particular form, but you have to look quite carefully to tell the differences between them. But a good photograph would be enough to identify them. It's certainly way better than I can say. This, though, I found on the Ivory Corn homepage. This is a link to the BRC. This is, they've done it for a few insect groups, trying to target field naturalists to go back to places where there are few records. So this is for the ground beetles. I've zoomed in on the county. So there's Welling Garden City. Dark green means they've got some recent data. So they've had some recent data. Light green means it's been revisited, so there's a few dots where people haven't gone back on sites. But the pinky ones are where they would like people to go back because there are old records on that area. Good place to revisit. So you can see a cluster here, which is Thornton area, down there in Potter's Bar. There's another cluster. So there where they would likely would go back, because there's some old records, but nothing current, I would say, the last 10 years. However, all the open ground, there's no records at all. So those gaps are actually places where there's been no ground in the records. So these are quite useful if you like to target, go to places where nobody's been, or alternatively, you want to go back where somebody has been, but some time ago, and see what's there now. This group, these are saprophytes, or species associated with old trees, fungi, decaying wood. We're actually quite good in the county of some of these because the county has a good number of surviving veteran trees, parklands, sites that are wooded. I've only got up to Norfolk or Lincolnshire to realise what a county hasn't got woodland can look like, or parts of Bedfordshire. There are miles and miles, and there's just a shelter belt of poplars and maybe a few sycamores. And we have got woodlands, and we have got veteran trees, so we have the species associated with them. And we have lovely old pollard trees like this in Bramfield Wood, or in Warrington, that provide such a range of habitats and regions. And this is written about in Trevor's book. The gnarled bark, it might be hollow, they've got live wood, they've got decaying wood, they've got fully dead wood, they've got diverse fungal communities. The habitat is long-lived, goes on for several years, so it provides a continuity of habitat. Even a single tree might, certainly a cluster of trees would. So that's why these are so important to say. And our nationally important sites, this is pictures of a tree in Ashridge, Hannington Park, Broxbourne Woods Complex, and Castlefree Park in that area in the Watford part of the county. And there's several other sites that are close. I'm willing to bet that Hatfield Park will be up there as well, with a survey as comprehensive as the ones done on other sites we've got on Hatfield Park, because we've certainly got veteran trees. So we've actually got 4 nationally important sites, at least in the county. I was going to finish up with the one group that I probably provided more records than Trevor did, and this is the water beetles. Not all my work by any means. Lovely chap called David Lean of the Environment Agency did a huge amount of work, particularly on the water beetles and rivers and streams, and he branched out to ponds and other habitats as well. That's the coverage of water beetles alone in the county. There's 8,000 records just of the group of water beetles. Most of them were in the period 1990 to 2004, when both were based in the county before I started travelling across the area. And of course they range quite a lot in size. There's the great diving beetle up there. That's a big chunky thing that's going to be up to sort of 3 centimetres in size. And this is the commonest one in the whole county. That's a riffle beetle called Elvis, so it's about 2 meters in size. And if you take a tray full of gravel from a decent stream, it will be there, but you might have to wait 10 or 15 minutes for it to show itself. If this goes 10 minutes a little bit of gravel for ages. I thought I'd just show you where tetrad maps are good, but if you come and zoom in a bit, you get the same information for higher quality. So the left-hand side is this species called Platambus in the county, mapped to tetrad. The right-hand one is 100 metres squared. And what you quite clearly see is there's the limrad, species likes it. There's the Lee, it does not. So 2 adjacent rivers, adjacent catchments. This one has half its flow from Luton sewage treatment works. This one has hardly any sewage in it whatsoever, even allowing for the current state of our sewage treatment works. And Limran is still a good quality river. What looks like a lot of dots in the southwest is a handful on the coal. What looks like a lot of dots over in the southwest is actually one site that's straddled 3 tetrads. So we've got 3 sites within it on one fast-flowing stream around the tree reservoirs. That is all. Doesn't like sort of ditches, likes fast-moving clean water. So the information is hidden behind those dots if you bring them in. I thought I'd put this in just to say, unlike growing plants, there are certain habitats when you do beetles that you have to appreciate can be a little bit less savoury. We've shown I love that open picture of Trevor with the carcass. Here we are with the dung beetles. And it's a good quality patch of dung. And Trevor said this several times in his talk at Warrington Village. Just how important an old dung pile was. Not one dung of animals that are treated with chemicals all the time, but a proper dung pile of animals that live on unfertilised pastures. Because that's where the diversity is. And this group, the dung beetle group, here's some of them. This is going to be colourful. Most of them are not. But over half the UK species in this group are in decline. And that's because too many of our animals get treated with ivermectin or other products to try and get rid of gut parasites. You just get it all the time, so do our dogs. And therefore, the dung will be toxic to a lot of the animals that want to live in it. The trouble is, it's not the adults that die, it's their larvae. So the adult often arrives in it, lays their eggs, and the larvae don't develop. And I put the figure there of how much dough is produced by cattle. One animal, 9 tonnes a year, a horse, 6.5 tonnes, a sheep, nearly a tonne. Multiply that by the number of animals, and you can see why a lot of pastures could not survive without the work of animals that decay dung. A really important ecosystem service, which most farmers have no idea is being done on their behalf for free. But if you make the dung toxic, it doesn't go away. It sits there for ages. So, I want to finish just with that simple statement that Trevor's legacy of beetles is unsurpassable, because not only did he write the book, the less book about cancer beetles in the country, but he covered as much as he possibly could. And there was every species. I realised that if I did the water beetles, I had to buy 2 books, possibly 3. If you want to do the ground beetles, that's another book. If you want to do the longhorns, that's another book. If you want to do the staphyloides, I think the series is 6 books. So, to do the beetles of Hertfordshire requires a whole shelf of the booklets. And then you've got to get them, put them under a microscope, identify them, have them checked if they're not certain. And that is an extraordinary amount of work. Quite apart from going to the libraries, going to the museums to see what other people say about them, collect all that information, to put it into a book and actually read, and you can. So I just want to finish saying, thank you, Trevor. As a legacy, the book, The Beetles of Hertfordshire is quite